Hey, Abraham, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Who I am? Well, my name is Abraham Bree. I'm 5'8" and 163 pounds. Wait, sorry, wrong show. My apologies. I am a marketing guy, as you could probably tell. If that intro didn't give it away, from a little place called Brooklyn, New York. I have an agency called Brand Whatever, and I've been in the marketing slash branding slash advertising space for give or take about 15 years. More or less giving away my age here, but if the hair on my head hasn't given you a hint to that, then you don't really need me to give you any more information about my age or anything like that.
Awesome. Now, are you an accidental agency owner or how did you start your agency?
Great question. So I did start out in the agency world, working for traditional ad agencies in New York, and I learned the whole creative business, creative side of things. What's interesting though is in the agency world, you learn how to be creative and you learn how to knock out amazing ad campaigns and brand campaigns. What you don't necessarily learn is how to deal with other people in the sense that you're in a cocoon surrounded by a bunch of creatives. You guys all have, your creative ideas and you speak the same language, but you don't actually interact with people from accounting or interact with people outside of the client, perhaps, who have other ideas or other opinions. So after 8 years in the agency world, one of my existing clients, one of the agency's clients actually offered me a job as their marketing director in their own company. They were a large company that bought the licensing rights to, believe it or not, Polaroid and Kodak. This is back when retro was in. And the idea was to purchase those licensing rights and then manufacture and market instant print cameras to the hipster crowd, which we did very successfully. And that was a learning experience in of itself, because at that point I had to just not deal with only my fellow creative team, who I had to hire and fire and groom, but I also had to deal with the accounting department and the HR department and the R&D department and the sales department. And it really was really a learning experience how to get everybody in the room to agree with your objective or your vision, while at the same time giving them space for whatever they wanted to do. So there was definitely some sort of learning curve involved to transition from a creative side to a corporate side. But thank God it went well. And things were going great. I was climbing up the career ladder. I was then offered a job in the second largest Fannie Mae Freddie Mac mortgage agency in the USA as their chief marketing officer. And at that point, it seems I hit the peak of my career and everything was amazing. And then a little thing called COVID started. My job actually started on March 20th. I believe the lockdown started on March 22nd. So as you can imagine, it was a downhill venture from there. And I'm being very open and blunt. I mean, most people who were dealing with COVID then didn't quite know what was going to be, this company included. Commercial loans especially took a hit. So after a few months there, they said, listen, we love what you're doing, but we can't really afford to keep you on board as a chief marketing officer. Would you sort of just do some consulting for us on the side? We'll pay you as a 1099, as a consultant, and then go get some other clients on the side to help fill in the gaps. So that was pretty much the pivot I needed to launch my own agency. So that happened back in the aftermath of COVID, and thank God we've been going ever since.
That's cool. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, that's kind of the shortest extent of a CMO position. We always joke about like with CMOs, they're not in that company very long.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Exhibit
unfortunately,
A.
COVID.
Yeah, but I pivoted, and I haven't made millions yet. It's a work in progress, and even as we talk here, I'm not going to try to say, well, I made $14 million in 4 days, and I'm going to show you. No, I don't do that type of stuff. I'm a marketing guy first and foremost. I use my creativity and the knowledge I built up over the years to create campaigns, craft brands, and in this case, help you and some of your listeners better understand how you can do that for yourselves.
Very cool. Now you were kind of telling me a little bit beforehand the creative way that you've been using AI.
Yeah,
AI has been around for a while now. People, you're either using it or you're not using it, and people fear it or you're loving it. Now you've kind of embraced it. So how have you been using AI, and how has it been going?
great question. So let me tell you a little about my foray into the world of AI. As I'm growing my own company and trying to, expand and get more clients on board, uh, I'm working on, growing my relationships with the clients. And the better relationship you have with the client, the more likely they'll call you, even if they themselves don't know exactly what they need. They'll say, hey, I have an issue. For example, a client of mine calls me, and this might be a side thing. Maybe you'll take it out after. I assume you're editing this, right, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, so you'll talk this part out. the ums and the ahs. But a client calls me, for example, and tells me, hi, I need packaging. I need packaging that can go inside a refrigerator and has to be waterproof for a food product. I'm not in the waterproof packaging line, but I was able to hook them up with somebody who is. So they use me as a resource a lot of times, and that's part of the value I bring to the table. So I had a client, a chain of nursing homes. They owned about 100 nursing facilities across North America. A lot of it was primarily along the East Coast and down south. And as part of this nursing home gig, they had weekly newsletters they would send out to their email lists. And I put together the newsletter for them, me and one of my writers, whatever it was. And it was one of those easy type of projects. Every week, rinse and repeat, make a newsletter. What happened this week? This week is Diabetes Awareness Week. Great. We make a little thing out of it. Kaboom, we're done. One day I get a call from the marketing director there, and she says, Abe, you do great stuff. We love you. We'll still use you for the bigger brand campaigns and the branding platforms. But week to week, the newsletters that we're doing via email, we're bringing it in-house. So I asked, is everything okay? Is there an issue with the work or the quality? She goes, no, you're doing amazing. So what's the problem? She goes, there's this new thing called ChatGPT we started using. And we realized that we could cut costs by simply feeding it some basic information and doing it in-house. And I had already, at that point, started, exploring the world of ChatGPT. Wasn't getting my feet too wet into it, but it was a little bit of an alarm bell for me. I'm like, okay, so basically I'm losing an account now, or losing part of an account to this invisible thing called ChatGPT, which I heard about but didn't know much about. So as I'm thinking about this and starting to explore the world of AI a little bit more, a couple of days later, I get a call from another client, a charity organization. Again, we did their yearly mailings for them. They had like a mailing, and it was a whole letter we wrote for them, and it was followed up by a series of email blasts. And they tell me, they go, Abe, you do great work, but I think at this point we're going to have to part ways. Why? What's the matter? Well, you're great, but we're this thing called ChatGPT we started using, and we're seeing you write all the content for us. And frankly, yeah, your writing might be a little bit better in terms of quality, but there's no reason why we have to spend all the money when we can do it in-house for free. So at that point, this is my aha moment. I'm like, okay, if you can't beat him, join him. How can I use AI to help me sell more marketing campaigns? Because again, the traditional way of email newsletters and all these campaigns that I'm doing with long form copy or content, it's not working anymore. And I racked my brains for a couple of days, and I said, what if I could use AI to help people with their pain points? Because I believe as a marketer, the way to sell something is find someone's pain point and then sell them on that pain point. So if somebody has an issue with X, you sell them on X. Someone has an issue with Y, sell them on Y. That's part of market research, obviously, which is a bigger conversation. So I'm Jewish, and it was right before Passover, actually. And in the world of Passover holidays, people typically go on vacation then with their families. They're all from school, they're all from work. So in the Jewish community, it's a big thing. What are you doing for Passover vacation? So I said, okay, as a father, I have 6 children, right? I know my kids are going to be bugging me, Daddy, what are we doing this Passover? Where are we going on vacation? So I came up with the idea of taking that pain point and solving it by creating, with one of my developers who I work with, a very basic app that gave you trip suggestions based on your zip code, your family size, and your type of interest. And the idea was, if somebody has a large family and they live in Brooklyn, New York, and they want to go on a water type of adventure, you simply you click a few buttons, large family, water adventure, zip code 11210, and within 30 seconds, it populates 20 locations in a 20-mile radius from you that you can easily go to. Now, this is a great idea, but how do I make money off of this? So my idea was, I'm going to pitch some kosher food companies that I've done business with in the past on a new type of campaign, because they already do print marketing and they do all their web marketing. They're not going to use me for that. They already have their agencies. If I could convince them to create AI campaigns, one-offs, that would get them more users, they would be more likely to agree to it. And that's what I did. I created this app. I demoed it for them. I said, imagine that alongside this trip generator that we're doing for the Jewish community, we're also going to have a list of your kosher food products that the typical consumer would want to bring along with them on their trips. If you're going on a long trip, it'll give you, certain types of snacks for longer trips. You're going on an outdoor trip, it'll give you more beverage type of snacks, so on and so forth. I pitched it to them, and they were blown away by it. They said, sure, we'd love to do this. And this real selling point there was, I said, listen, you guys are going to spend 10, 15, 20 grand right now on print ad campaigns. Nothing to do with me. This costs a fraction of that. And your FaceTime you're going to have with the client is not going to be 3 or 4 seconds, which is what you have with a typical print ad or even a banner ad. The average person using this is going to try it 3, 4, 5 times, which actually the data showed they did. And you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of interaction and FaceTime with the client. What is the value of 5 minutes of interaction versus 3 seconds. And by the way, that's also the pain point that the company was having. Spending all this money on a print ad, how do I maximize money being spent on an ad to get more face time with clients? So I used AI to create a hybrid marketing campaign, which they then advertise in traditional media, doing something, what are you doing this Passover with your family? Check out canwegonow.com, sponsored by Geffen and Kedem. Those were the brand names. And we had, believe it or not, over 40,000 users in a 1 week span using it. Now, here's the funny part. After that week, the amount of people visiting the site dropped tremendously, but that's fine because AI was so quick and so efficient for us to roll it out. It didn't take us that much time or cost that much money. So we're able to knock out a very low budget, high impact campaign using AI, giving the client 5 minutes of FaceTime with the 40,000 users, and everyone walked away very happy and satisfied with the results. That's one example. I've got dozens more I could talk to you about. But the idea is figure out the pain point and then use AI to create a hybrid marketing campaign that would achieve results for clients. I've been talking, haven't I?
Yeah, I really like that. And you're coming to these companies before they even pay you with an idea or a concept that they can run with and demonstrate to them rather than saying, a lot of agencies, hey, I can guarantee you this amount of leads, every week and that kind of stuff. So how did you reach out to them? Did you email them? Did you call them? Did you, hit them up on social to get the conversation? And what was that message?
So again, in the world of business, you make connections, and I try to keep up with my connections over the years. So my original connection was somebody who was there, who I dealt with a few years back. I had not necessarily done business with him over the past few years, but I did have his information and his contact. He knew who I was. So I did a cold pitch and I said, hey, you heard of AI? Yeah. I have something specifically for your company that's going to blow your mind. Give me 5 minutes. I'll show you how it works.
Well, like
Simple as that. And again, I took a bit of a risk by developing with my developer, but the beauty of AI is it fast tracks everything. What would have taken me months to put together previously took us a few days. So I figured it's worth the risk. And once I had built that platform, I was then able to use it for other companies. I used it for another a nonprofit organization with soup kitchens, feeding elderly Holocaust survivors in Israel. And then we made an AI how they could talk to Holocaust survivors to understand how they survived the war and make more of a connection between donors and recipients. I then used that platform again, think of it as upcycling, for lack of a better word, to create another platform for another food company where they gave specific recipes for certain times of the year for certain holidays. I used it for a couple of other companies as well, some more generic, some more niche. But the idea here is we can create really short, impactful campaigns using AI at a very low cost that will make people talk about you and turn their heads. Again, might not last forever. The whole idea, for example, of Can We Go Now lasted for about a week. We had 40,000 users, and if I may add, we also got global coverage. You can Google my name, Abraham Bree, or Can We Go Now? And we were covered in newspapers everywhere from Ad Age to Times of Israel to the Jerusalem Post. Again, it was definitely skewed more towards Jewish demographic, but people want to talk about you. And if you give them something to talk about, they will. And that's really what happened in this case.
Well, I like it how you start with the low-hanging fruit too, like your network, the people you already know. I always tell everybody you have to know, kind of going back to what you were saying, like know who you want to go after, know their biggest challenge or a challenge that they have, and then just reach out to them. And I like how simple it was is, hey, do you know anything about AI? You probably want this. This is really cool. Do you have 5 minutes? And then, yeah, I mean, it's curiosity there. Like, sure. Yeah, I have 5 minutes. Like,
yeah. And don't overpromise either. I didn't overpromise them. I said, hey, it's going to blow your mind. I'm not saying it's for you or not, but it's just pretty cool. You want to check this out. And obviously, yeah, you leave the hook dangling a little bit. And there is a genuine hook. When he saw it, he was like, oh my God, how do we get in on this? I said, it's yours. Let's work out some numbers here, but nothing crazy. It's low cost. It'll cost you a fraction of what traditional media would cost you. And I was very open up front. It's not going to last you forever, but here's the good news. You just need people to talk about you for a couple of weeks. It's going to give them something to talk about. And then in a few weeks, move on. Let's go to the next thing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I always love those little test projects to, to prove to someone rather than asking for a huge retainer off the bat. When you ask for a huge retainer, that's a big commitment, which requires a lot of trust, on their part. And it takes a while. And with this, it's kind of like, hey, let me prove myself here. Boom, boom. Like, right. It's easy.
It's a small success story. And again, I'm still figuring it out myself. I'm not going to tell you I figured out the golden bullet here. I haven't. It's a work in progress. I think AI is so new. It's the Wild West. Nobody fully understands it. But one piece of advice I'm giving to people who ask me about AI, because the few success stories I've had, people have started reaching out to me. Hey, how do I do this? What do you think of that? I tell them as follows. If you look at the California gold rush, I call it my gold rush analogy. The people making money were not really the miners. People who ran to California to pan for gold, most
Selling
of
the
them came out.
tools.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they were the ones that made the money were the ones selling the tools.
Levi Strauss, Levi's jeans, but also, there are other companies like Ghirardelli Chocolates or Studebaker, the car company, actually, who started out making wagons to hold the gold. The people who were surrounding and providing services for the gold miners, those are the ones that succeeded. So people tell me, oh, should I build my own LLM? Should I try to go head to head with OpenAI? I'm like, guys, don't even bother with that. There's so many ancillary services that you could bring to the table. Like in my case, in my own little microcosm, I'm using AI and LLMs to create mini ad campaigns or marketing campaigns for clients. Figure out how you can service those who are in the AI space, and that's where the gold really is.
Yeah, I love that. Well, this has been awesome, Abram. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
So again, I don't think that I have all the answers. I like talking to people who have answers. A few years back, I did this thing where I sent a mailing out to about 50 or 60 different creative directors across the USA, asking them for the one piece of advice that they could give me as a growing creative. And most of them were very generic. One of them came from Milton Glaser, who you may have known as a famous designer who made the I Love New York logo. He was an icon. I think he passed away a few years ago. And he sent me back an envelope. Inside the envelope, it was actually empty. He had his name, and he put a stamp on there. When you flipped it over, it just said the words, "Stay curious. Always stay curious." And that just blew my mind, the fact that he replied to me, but also that guy who was probably in his 80s at that point was creative enough to not just give me a typical generic boilerplate letter, but actually sent his own little weird curiosity-seeking type of answer. And if I could impart one little thing, yeah, by all means, stay curious, keep learning, keep connecting, and God willing, you will make the gold.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for sharing your strategy and also that story. That is pretty cool. And yeah, that logo of I Love New York is pretty iconic. And I like how he responded. I've always believed that, in everything I've always done, I've always had that curiosity, and that's what keeps moving us, forward of going, because as soon as you think you figured it out, you're done. It's just, there's nothing left. It's not possible to figure everything out.
No, it's not. But as long as you're staying curious, there's a better chance of you figuring out the next thing.
Exactly. Well, this has been a lot of fun. And for all of you that are listening, that the ones that are curious and the ones that are wanting to be surrounded with other amazing agency owners where you can ask questions and you can share what's working and just feel like you've found your tribe. I'd love to all of you to check out our mastermind. You go to agencymastery360.com, click on the scale, and let's have a conversation and see if we can actually help you out. And until next time, have a swank day. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out.